Hello everyone, this is just after last vlog. I'm going to be reading a chapter in here. I've been assigned this book. I've actually assigned myself this book. And I'm gonna read it to you guys because I feel like this might be motivation for me to keep going if I can read it to you guys specifically. Why am I still doing puzzle? I'm just too addicted to doing puzzle, y'all. I'm addicted. I have to go to rehab, y'all. I gotta get rid of this addiction I have, y'all. It's here. No, it's here. There we go. Good. Okay. That's it. Alright. Okay. How many pages is this? Chapter... Okay, this is 29... So... 1 to 29... Yeah. Okay. Alright. What should be a good view for you guys to do? How about here? Alright. Okay, everyone. Settle in. I'm gonna tell you a bedtime story. Prologue. The Meeting of Minds. Paul Ehrenfest was in tears. He had made his decision. Soon he would attend a week-long gathering where many of those responsible for the quantum revolution would try to understand the meaning of what they had wrought. There he would have to tell his old friend Albert Einstein that he had chosen to side with Niels Bohr. Ehrenfest, the 34-year-old Austrian professor of theoretical physics at Leiden University in Holland, was convinced that the atomic realm was as strange and ethereal as Bohr argued. Footnote 1. In a note, what is the footnote? They don't have it. Okay. In a note to Einstein as they sat around the conference table, Ehrenfest scribbled, "Don't laugh. There is a special section in Purgatory for professors of quantum theory, where they will be obliged to listen to lectures on classical physics 10 hours every day. I laugh only at their naivete," Einstein replied. Who knows who would have the last laugh in a few years? For him it was no laughing matters, for at stake was the very nature of reality and the soul of physics. The photograph of those gathered at the 5th Solvay Conference on Electrons and Photons, held in Brussels from 24 to 29 October 1927, encapsulates the story of the most dramatic period in the history of physics, with 17 of the 29 invited eventually earning a Nobel Prize. The conference was one of the most spectacular meetings of minds ever held. It marked the end of a golden age of physics, an era of scientific creativity unparalleled since the scientific revolution in the 17th century led by Galileo and Newton. Paul Ehrenfest is standing, slightly hunched forward, in the back row, third from the left. There are 9 seated in the front row, 8 men and 1 woman. 6 have Nobel Prizes in either physics or chemistry. The woman has 2, one for physics awarded in 1903 and another for chemistry in 1911. Her name, Marie Curie. In the center, the place of honor, sits another Nobel laureate, the most celebrated scientist since the age of Newton, Albert Einstein. Looking straight ahead, gripping the chair with his right hand, he seems ill at ease. Is it the winged collar and tie that are causing him discomfort, or what he has heard in the preceding week? At the end of the second row, on the right, is Niels Bohr, looking relaxed with a half-whimsical smile. It has been a good conference for him. Nevertheless, Bohr would be returning to Denmark disappointed that he had failed to convince Einstein to adopt his Copenhagen interpretation of what quantum mechanics revealed about the nature of reality. Instead of yielding, Einstein had spent the week attempting to show that quantum mechanics was inconsistent, that Bohr's Copenhagen interpretation was flawed. Einstein said years later that this theory reminds me a little of the system of delusions of an exceedingly intelligent paranoid, concocted of incoherent elements of thoughts. Let me try that again. Einstein said years later that this theory reminds me a little of the system of delusions of an exceedingly intelligent paranoid, concocted of incoherent elements of thoughts. God, that's a tongue twister. It was Max Planck sitting on Marie Curie's right, holding his hat and cigar, who discovered the quantum. In 1900, he was forced to accept that the energy of light and all other forms of electromagnetic radiation could only be emitted or absorbed by matter in bits, bundled up in various sizes. Quantum was the name Planck gave to an individual packet of energy, with quanta being the plural. The quantum of energy was a radical break with the long-established idea that energy was emitted or absorbed continuously, like water flowing from a tap. In the everyday world of the macroscopic, where the physics of Newton ruled supreme, water could drip from a tap, but energy was not exchanged in droplets of varying size. However, the atomic and subatomic level of reality was the domain of the quantum. In time, it was discovered that the energy of an electron inside an atom was quantized. It could possess only certain amounts of energy and not others. The same was true of other physical properties, as the microscopic realm was found to be lumpy and discontinuous and not some shrunken version of the large-scale world that humans inhabit, where physical properties vary smoothly and continuously, where going from A to C means passing through B. Quantum physics, however, revealed that an electron in an atom can be in one place and then, as if by magic, reappear in another without ever being anywhere in between, by emitting or absorbing a quantum of energy. This was a phenomenon beyond the ken of classical, non-quantum physics. It was as bizarre as an object mysteriously disappearing in London and an instant later suddenly reappearing in Paris, New York, or Moscow. By the early 1920s, it had long been apparent that the It had long been apparent that the advance of quantum physics on an ad hoc, piecemeal basis had left it without solid foundations or a logical structure. Out of this state of confusion and crisis emerged a bold new theory known as quantum mechanics. The picture of the atom as a tidy solar system with electrons orbiting a nucleus, still taught in schools today, was abandoned and replaced with an atom that was impossible to visualize. Then, in 1927, Werner Heisenberg made a discovery that was so at odds with common sense that even he, the German Wunderkind of quantum physics, initially struggled to grasp its significance. The uncertainty principle said that if you want to know the exact velocity of a particle, then you cannot know its exact location, and vice versa. No one knew how to interpret the equations of quantum mechanics, what the theory was saying about the nature of reality at the quantum level. Questions about cause and effect, or whether the moon exists when no one is looking at it, had been the preserve of philosophers since the time of Plato and Aristotle, but after the emergence of quantum mechanics, they were being discussed by the 20th century's greatest physicists. With all the basic components of quantum physics in place, the Fifth Solvay Conference opened a new chapter in the story of the quantum. For the debate that the conference sparked between Einstein and Bohr raised issues that continue that... I should redo that sentence. For the debate that the conference sparked between Einstein and Bohr raised issues that continue to preoccupy many eminent physicists and philosophers to this day. What is the nature of reality, and what kind of description of reality should be regarded as meaningful. No more profound intellectual debate has been cut. I am discombobulated. Okay. No more profound intellectual debate has ever been conducted, claimed the scientist and novelist C.P. Snow. It is a pity that the debate, because of its nature, can't be common currency. Of the two main protagonists, Einstein is a 20th century icon. He was once asked to stage his own 3-week show at the London Palladium. Women fainted in his presence, just like me. Young girls mobbed him in Geneva, just like me. Today, this sort of adulation is reserved for pop singers and movie stars, but in the aftermath of the First World War, Einstein became the first superstar of science when in 1919 the bending of light predicted by his theory of general relativity was confirmed. Little had changed when in January 1931, during a lecture tour of America, Einstein attended the premiere of Charlie Chaplin's movie City Limits in Los Angeles. A large crowd cheered wildly when they saw Chaplin and Einstein. They cheer me because they all understand me, Chaplin told Einstein, and they cheer you because no one understands you. Whereas the name Einstein is a byword for scientific genius, Niels Bohr was and remains less well known. Yet to his contemporaries, he was every inch the scientific giant. In 1923, Max Born, who played a pivotal part in the development of quantum mechanics, wrote that Bohr's influence on theoretical and experimental research of our time is greater than that of any other physicist. 40 years later, in 1963, Werner Heisenberg maintained that Bohr's influence on the physics and the physicists of our century was stronger than that of anyone else, even more than that of Albert Einstein. When Einstein and Bohr first met in Berlin in 1920, each found an intellectual sparring partner who would, without bitterness or rancor, push and prod the other into refining and sharpening his thinking about the quantum. It is through them and some of those gathered at Solvay 1927 that we capture the pioneering years of quantum physics. It was a heroic time, recalled the American physicist Robert Oppenheimer, who was a student in the 1920s. It was a period of patient work in the laboratory, of crucial experiments and daring action, of many false starts and many untenable conjectures. It was a time of earnest correspondence and hurried conferences, of debate, criticism, and brilliant mathematical improvisation. For those who participated, it was a time of creation. But for Oppenheimer, the father of the atom bomb, there was terror as well as exultation in their new insight. Without the quantum, the world we live in would be very different. Yet for most of the 20th century, physicists accepted that quantum mechanics denied the existence of a reality. Yet for most of the 20th century, physicists accepted that quantum mechanics denied the existence of a reality beyond what was measured in the experiments. It was a state of affairs that led the American Nobel Prize-winning physicist Murray Gell-Mann to describe quantum mechanics as that mysterious, confusing discipline which none of us really understands, but which we know how to use. And use it we have. Quantum mechanics drives and shapes the modern world by making possible everything, from computers to washing machines, from mobile phones to nuclear weapons. The story of the quantum begins at the end of the 19th century when, despite the recent discoveries of the electron X-rays and radioactivities, and the ongoing dispute about whether or not atoms existed, many physicists were confident that nothing major was left to uncover. The more important fundamental laws and facts of physical science have all been discovered, and these are now so firmly established that the possibility of their ever being supplanted in consequence of new discoveries is exceedingly remote, said the American physicist Albert Michelson in 1899. Our future discoveries, he argued, must be looked for in the 6th place of decimals. Many shared Michelson's view of a physics of decimal places, believing that any unsolved problems represented little challenge to established physics and would sooner or later yield to time-honored theories and principles. James Clerk Maxwell, the 19th century's greatest theoretical physicist, had warned as early as 1871 against such complacency. This characteristic of modern experiments, that they consist principally of measurements, is so prominent that the opinion seems to have got abroad that in a few years all the great physical constants will have been approximately estimated, and that the only occupation which will be left to men of science will be to carry on these measurements to another place of decimals. Maxwell pointed out that the real reward for the labor of careful measurement was not greater accuracy but the discovery of new fields of research and the development of new scientific ideas. The discovery of the quantum was the result of just such a labor of careful measurement. In the 1890s, some of Germany's leading physicists were obsessively pursuing a problem that had long vexed them. What was the relationship between the temperature, the range of colors, and the intensity of light emitted by a hot iron poker? It seemed a trivial problem compared to the mystery of X-rays and radioactivity that had physicists rushing to their laboratories and reaching for their notebooks. But for a nation forged only in 1871, the quest for the solution to the hot iron poker, or what became known as the black body problem, was so intimately bound up with the need to give the German lighting industry a competitive edge against its British and American competitors. But try as they might, Germany's finest physicists could not solve it. In 1896, they thought they had, only to find within a few short years that new experimental data proved that they had not. It was Max Planck who solved the black body problem at a cost. The price was the quantum. And that's the end of the prologue, everyone. And I've got 29 more pages. Oh boy. Alright, I'm gonna do chapter 1 tonight, maybe. But that's it. That's my first book vlog where I just read you a book. Ain't that wonderful? Probably not. Alright. Oh, no, stop doing puzzle. I swear to God, if you touch that fucking puzzle again, I swear.